Morning, everybody. We're going to get started here in a couple of minutes, but I got my blue camera on, which is Ustream, and the people out there in the airwaves. We're about a minute away, and we'll get going. Well, good morning, everybody. That was Mask Off by Future. Good morning. We're here at KUHSdenver.com. You're listening to 360 Mindsets and the 360 Performance Show. Good morning to everybody here in Denver and around the country. We're going to talk a little bit about Major League Baseball. Just a little bit about Major League Baseball. And preseason's here. Catchers and pitchers are down at the respective camps. Before we get into too much detail about that, I want to honor a request I had from the Love Doctor. He asked me about, well, where's the NFL draft? The 2019 list of the NFL draft, and where do the wonderful Colorado teams sit with the NFL draft? Well, let me look at the list here. I got the list right here. Got the NFL draft first round order. Let me just take a look here. Where are the Denver Broncos on the first round draft? Well, guess what? They made the top 10. They made the top 10. Yes, they did. They are number 10, right after Buffalo Bills. And their 6-10 record tied them with the Detroit Lions. 8 through 11 all had 6-10 records. They positioned themselves respectively in the draft in that manner. So we got Detroit Lions, Buffalo Bills as 8-9, Denver Broncos 10, Cincinnati Bengals 11. Very, very interesting. Interestingly enough as well, the teams at the top of the list, top 5, guess what we're going to do? Spoiler alert, we're not going to tell you. We're not going to tell you that until we get closer to the draft. We still have the combine coming up for those college players to be looked at and scrutinized by scouts, the owners, and maybe in some cases some players will actually show up for their own current roster for their respective teams. So, once again, it's noon in Colorado, and I'm sure it's noon someplace else in the world. But here today, it's 11 o'clock, and we're going to go till noon on the 360 Performance and KUHSdenver.com. And the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is what were some of the awards that were given out for the NFL for the 2018 season. Some notable awards that you would probably expect. I was surprised by a couple of things. Patrick Mahomes, really, he should have been at the Oscars because he was a multiple nominee and winner. He was the most valuable player, AP, Associated Press most valuable player, was Patrick Mahomes. And then what really was interesting to me is Matt Nagy, Chicago Bears, my hometown Bears back in Chicago, was listed as the AP Coach of the Year. And this I agree with wholeheartedly because not in his own effort did he help the Colts get to where they were at as a playoff contender this year, but Andrew Luck was named the AP Comeback Player of the Year for the Indianapolis Colts. And now here's the second award for Mr. Mahomes. He was named the AP Offensive Player of the Year, presented by Microsoft Surface, the Kansas City Chiefs. And then I'm not going to forget the defensive players. And this guy, if you watched any of the Los Angeles Rams play this season, you would have just been marveled at Aaron Donald and his work. So he was named the AP Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL this year. The Offensive Rookie of the Year, which Mahomes did not get because he's not a rookie, of course, is Saquon Barkley from the New York Giants. And the last award that I'm going to share with you is the AP Defensive Rookie of the Year, Darius Leonard, which was presented by Old Spice. Well, actually, both awards the offense and defensive rookies of the year were presented by Old Spice. So I'm just looking at the list. Sorry, I got paused. I got caught up in it. But there's some NFL news. Now, as we get into our theme for today, which is Major League Spring Ball prep and preparation, prep and practice. We're going to talk about our Rockies a little bit. I got my jersey on. The last coaching job I had in baseball was with the Fairview Knights, and I love this jersey because it's an official Rawlings League style jersey for the Major League. Now underneath that, got the Rockies going on, folks. There they are. Yes, sir. Okay. So one of the things I want to talk a little bit about before we get too deep in the MLB is going back to a comment I made last week that was from Bill Belichick. And it aligned with Coach John Wooden. And for those of you who are too young to know who Coach John Wooden is, 9-time NCAA basketball coach of the championship, of champs, the UCLA Bruins. He and Coach Belichick align with these things. And this is Belichick's key factors that have led to success. And today's discussion is going to talk about success of baseball players getting through the spring ball. Not everybody's a rostered player that's going to be in camp. That starts this week for pitchers and catchers, and next week on the 18th officially for everybody. And then they've got about a month. Some of these players have a month. That's it to show what they need to show, and they're done with spring ball. And the rest of the team, the rest of the roster will be established going into the remainder of the spring ball. But Belichick says here are the key factors that have led to his success, and he aligns it with what Coach Wooden believes in. Belichick has an excessive knowledge of football. So knowledge, know what you need to know. And I'll add to this. I'll say that you need to know what you know for you. And Belichick references that by talking about breaking down film, looking at film. I was at one of my players' home the other day, and she had her teammates around her, and she's a volleyball player, and they were looking at film. And I said, it's great to see what you put on film, and especially if it's positive, because that's a reinforcement of the right thing to do. But what's even more important is identifying the opportunity to succeed at a different level. And that opens the door for more knowledge, more insight. So, knowledge is the first one. Humility is the second one that Belichick puts out there for the key to success. And in his subtle and eminent way, he says, humility is being relentless in holding himself accountable to other individuals in the organizations he's worked for. Now, I'm not saying, and I'm sure Belichick would agree with me on this one, because I've heard him talk, I've talked to him myself on various things, and he doesn't agree with everybody on everything. So, and especially at this time in his career where he's had some time in it, he's succeeded at it. He's got a basis for saying things about how good he is at what he does. And people should just back up because he's got the evidence to support it. But he's still humble. And he says he's very relentless in his humility of holding the organization and individuals accountable for all the values I'm stating here. And the third value he has is adaptability. Make sure that you're able to look at where you're at and the people that are in that space with you and adjust and adapt to what's going on. Here's an example of that Belichick. In 2014, they won the Super Bowl. But once that happened, going into 2015, he totally revamped his defense. Now, I don't have the details here about why he chose to do that, but more than likely, he saw some things that were going to be changing in the offenses that they were going to face, and they needed to adapt and adjust. And having that that knowledge of that, and then being humble enough to address it and hold everybody else accountable, it resulted in 2016 in their 5th Super Bowl. Lastly, Belichick offers self-control. Now, I don't know if you've seen that guy on the sidelines. I don't know that his expression ever changes. Unless you bring his grandchild next to him or his family, his expression doesn't change. Let me see hold on a minute. Let me see if I can do a Belichick for you. Did you get that? It was very subtle. That was my Belichick. Now, for those of you who aren't watching us today, I think that was the best Belichick I've ever seen. I'm a little bit biased, right? And by the way, good morning, Henry. Good to have you here. So self-control is, for Belichick, it's not so much the emotional side. He talks about paying attention to the details. If you're not in control, you're not seeing the details. We talk about one of our segments is about mental conditioning, which is about looking at your environment, being aware of where you're at, your mental condition. Have you prepared yourself with the skills based on your five senses and your mindset, which is removing the negatives, to be prepared to take in and be aware of your surroundings? Well, that's a great lead into today's topic. Once again, you're listening to 360 Performance, brought to you by 360mindset.com. That would be me. And KUHSdenver.com. Great place to be. Love it here. Having a great time bringing you the information and insights about how to be your best and perform at your highest level. So, we talked about the NFL draft, but the MLB, they're not really drafting as much as they're auditioning right now in spring ball. And this is the first time I'm putting that emphasis, that layer of examination of spring ball on the table, because I discovered there's a term that Major League Baseball uses that's related to this fact. The fact is, Major League Baseball does not have tryouts. They don't. They don't hold tryouts. Every player in the minor leagues, now some people think minor leagues, there's a tryout system in the minor leagues. Not true. Because every player in the minor leagues is an employee of a major league organization / franchise. So they have contracts. Those minor league players have contracts. Now, they may have been discovered through a tryout process, and there's many of those around the country that you pay a fee for. So if you're interested in looking for a place to try out, and quite honestly, I have to admit, for me, there's quite a bit of talent out there in the world, actually. Baseball is a world sport. It started here. We're the homegrown place for baseball to start, and it moved its way around the world after we created it. But there's a new concept. Well, sorry, not a new concept. It's been around since 1975. And by the way, I'll give you the connections to, if you're interested in finding those minor league or those tryout places to maybe find your way to the majors in advance, resources. I'll give you a website link for that. But before that, this term is, it's NRI, non-roster invitation. Getting a non-roster invitation is a cool thing to do, because that means somebody at a major league team said, we want you to come out and try out. And people like, good morning, by the way, Bill. Bill is online with us this morning. You know that system, Bill. And quite honestly, Bill, you're so old, I don't think they have the NRI. And back in the day, you just played, you got looked at, if you're good enough, you got a shot. Well, now there's some formality to it, called a non-roster invitation, NRI, and there's actually, each major league team has a list that they will create for NRIs. And here's some teams that are going to be trying out a few players. For example, the Atlanta Braves have 15 open tryouts. The Brewers have 3. Rangers in 2012 signed 1 player out of over 400 they looked at. So that gives you an idea that they're interested, but they're not all that confident they're going to find that superstar left-hander or that superstar DHer or that superstar skill position player at the shortstop, second base, or third base to make the plays. It's very interesting what's going on. So in our first segment, as we always talk about, I'm kind of playing into the first segment a little bit, is our mindset. Removing the negatives is the premise now for our mindset segment. And when you're an Major League Baseball player, in this case, an NRI invite, a non-roster invite, you better have your brain wrapped around where are the negatives, how do I remove them, and move on so I can consistently deliver the performance that I need to give so that I can become a roster player. There is no invite, and I'm not on the roster anymore. I am on the roster and playing the game. So, as I said, if you're interested in knowing where to go to investigate this, because you're a baseball player, you love the game, you still got some skill sets left to distribute and share, go to this website. It's Steve, Steve, the ump, so theump.com /mlteamaddress.htm. That's Steve, theump.com /Major League or ML team address.htm. And you'll get a whole list. And let's make sure we're clear on this. It's not just the United States. You could go connect with organizations all over the globe for insights on how and where to try out. What's the process? And we have lots of different preparatory tryout programs. There's a PECOS program that covers some Southwest states that you can play in a league, as well as getting observed by scouts while you're also training. So it's kind of a real-time tryout scenario, as well as formal times at the end of those seasons in the PECOS league. But there's also tryouts for those leagues. But again, you're gonna pay a fee for that in many cases to make that happen. Now, for the Colorado Rockies, well, before I say that, one of those players I'm very interested in making sure they get to the dance again, who's been an exemplary player for a number of years in Major League Baseball, is Curtis Granderson. Curtis is an NRI down with the Miami Marlins. Now, interestingly enough, one of his old teammates he oversees the roster. He is the, I'll call it director, I think it's VP, but he's in charge of baseball operations for the Marlins, and that is Derek Jeter. And Derek Jeter, he's all about winning, and so is Curtis Granderson. So my hope is that Curtis has that physical skill set still there in him that's going to measure up, and they're going to find a fit for him on the roster in the next 20 days or so that he makes the Marlin roster and he can bring that winning attitude to the dugout. Because one of the biggest things for me about Curtis is he's a very strong force in the dugout. He brings youngsters together. He identifies certain themes and systems that he sees on the mound. One of the most recent ones for me that comes to mind is when he discovered and he was playing for the Dodgers at the time during the playoffs. He discovered that their pitcher, this is during the World Series against the Astros, their pitcher was giving away his pitches. And it was just a very simple thing to do. Well, regretfully, the Dodgers coaches didn't quite listen to Curtis. And, it could be the way you communicated it. It could have been the circumstances in the dugout. I mean, it's during the World Series, for crying out loud. And he was there, one of their key ace of 5 starter pitchers. So my point is that Curtis is a force in the dugout. So I'm hoping that the Marlins are going to evaluate the whole player and not just the at the plate player, the in the field player, the person who's practicing player. It's complete. It's about brain and body connection, so that they help themselves and Curtis. But as I say that, I remind you to take a look at 360mindset.com. That's my website. Take a look for any new updates and insights about that. Check us out. Check me out on all the social media platforms that are out there. We've got some great, wonderful news and thoughts coming out through all the different platforms. But join us with that whenever you can. Now, we're coming into the skills segment here in a minute, but before I do that, let me just tell you what's going on with the Rockies on their NRI. So, this last week on Wednesday, the Rockies announced that they were going to have 19 NRIs attend camp, and they'll be invited to the spring training down in Arizona. Now, this list of 19 includes minor league players as well that they haven't signed officially. They're just playing in their minor league league, so they're on those rosters. So here's the list, and I'll give you the highlights of who they really are focusing in on. And it's, as you can imagine, it's both left and right-hand pitchers, it's catchers, infielders, and outfielders. The list is very short on the outfielders. Only one. And I'll start with that because this gentleman is picked as one of the ones they hope will make the roster. And that's Michael Saunders. Michael Saunders is on that list. Now we go to infielders now. There's 7 infielders they're looking at. 2 of them, Peter Mooney and Mark Reynolds, are the 2 that they really are hoping are going to, and I shouldn't say the Rockies are hoping it. These are independent scouting agencies and the media that are saying these things. So they've got those 2 gentlemen. Now they've got 4 catchers. There's 2 of those 4 they're looking at very seriously. Brett Nicholas and Chris Ravago are the 2 that they're looking at. Now, I'm sorry, Chris. Is it a soft G or a hard G? It could be Ravago or Ravago. I'll go either way. But it's Brett and Chris, 2 catchers they're looking at of the 4 that they've listed as non-roster invitations. They've got some right-handed pitchers. They've got 4 right-handed pitchers that they've invited. Those who are observing these players are not saying there's any one of those 4 that are going to have a good shot at making the roster. But you never can tell. People show up, as we've talked about. They've removed the negative. Their mindset is strong, and they're working on their skill sets and looking at controlling their emotions, which is what we're going to talk about in the skill segment. Is taking all those 5 senses and really controlling your emotions while you're in this setting. Now, on the left-handed pitcher side of things, they've got 3 pitchers they've invited on the non-roster invitations, but Sam Howard of those 3 is the one they're very seriously looking at. Okay. Now, there are a couple other players on this roster list. They're looking at Rogers. Their number 1 look on their list of 19 is Brendan Rodgers. He's the one they're looking at as the number 1 choice. Number 2 is Lambert. And Rodgers, by the way, is an infielder. Campbell is the number 2 hot prospect that the Rockies are looking at. That's different from what I just listed. Let me get the Campbell. Campbell. That'll be it. I'm sorry, Lambert. So the Rockies think that Lambert is a right-handed pitcher. He's a hot one they're looking at. That's their number 2 hot look. That's different than what other prognosticators think. They didn't pick any right-handers off the list. So you see the differences here. There's so many eyes and minds on what the choices are. The number 3, top 3 of the 19 is Welker. And Welker, I'm surprised if it's not a pitcher. I'm betting it might be no, it is. It's an infielder. So they're hot on 2 infielders. Colton Welker is the top 3 of the NRIs for the Rockies. Those are the top 3 they're looking at, hoping that they'll make the roster. The Rockies' perspective. There are other opinions out there. I have an opinion, just like everybody's. No, never mind. I was going to say something. Everybody's got at least one of these. Can you fill in the blank? Well, in some cases, that's the case. Those who think they have an opinion, their opinion isn't exactly representative of the organization or the skill sets those players have. Now, we're in our skills segment, and that's about our 5 senses. Being aware of your surroundings so that you can really bring together your strategy on maintaining that, identifying where the negatives are in your mindsets process, bring the skills to bear. But remember, in this scenario, if you're an NRI, you may know the field because you've been there before, but it's different because you don't have a large time frame to get it done. The prediction is that somewhere around March 15th, 20 days, less than 30 days for sure, the teams will be making a decision on who of the NRI invites are going to stay on the roster. So as I said, Curtis Granderson's down there with the Miami Marlins. He's an outfielder. Great things have been said about him. Great things he has done in his career, and recent things. when he was in the playoffs and getting a chance to go to the World Series again. The Milwaukee Brewers, his last team, was playing the Dodgers. And the season before that, Curtis was playing for the Dodgers and helping them get to the World Series, which they did. So he's got a great resume. No guarantee. Still have to deliver in a place you're familiar with. But now the game has changed. The urgency has been amped up. That's going to affect your mind and your concentration on things. So we're going to give you a couple of things you can do to be aware of that. If you're not an active listener of the show, we go through this routinely, some of those things that you want to think about. But in this case, under the non-roster invitation, you got to be sharp. You can't be holding back. It's every day. It's got to start with remove the negatives, get it in your head, focus on what your strategies, your process, the environmental influences, the skills you bring to the table. Making sure you've got food in your belly, the taste. Remember 5 senses. That you go through your routine. Everything feels good. You've got your lotion on. You've got your right hair product in. I'm giggling, but it's serious. There are so many things that athletes, and especially baseball players, have to have. They say have to have, so that everything feels right. That all the skills, what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what you feel, is all in place and ready to go. Because the time frame is not very long. You don't have a lot of time to make this happen. Now, as I say that, I'm going to remind you of some of the things that some of my players have. Like one of them is Germ Block. We have Germ Block, which is the germicidal hand sanitizer. This is stuff you need to have because you don't need to get sick. You don't need to go down. I mean, a lot of camps are in Florida and Arizona, so it's nice, warm, arid country. But if you've got allergies, you might have allergies to molds. Well, you're down in Florida. That's a very moist warmth. But there's also the swing of temperatures at nighttime. So you want to make sure you're killing the germs. Germ Block. That's one of the folks that I work with. It's a non-alcohol, so it doesn't dry your skin out. And you don't get that excessive cracking of your knuckles and cuticles. And I know as a catcher, back in Iowa, both in college and high school, when I was a catcher, my hands, they're important. More important than perhaps any player on the field, with the exception of short and second. I'm not excluding third baseman, first baseman, but this is pretty hard shots to get there in your hands, the suppleness of your hands and how quickly. So I always like to have, I wasn't a lotion kid when I was younger, but I learned how important that motion was and the feeling of my hands were to my mind being right and controlling my emotions when I took the field. In addition to that, now that I've gotten older, I have aches and pains. And Empower Body Care products, which you can get online at empowerbodycare.com. And this is CBD-based products. It's awesome. I've tried a lot of them. I have a number of clients in the cannabis industry in that field. And they're just like any other business, so I advise them on performance issues. But this one is very important to me because I have soreness from the years of I was a catcher. I'm back behind the plate, and I prided myself on how agile I was behind the plate. Well, that took its toll. Ankles, knees. Empower, as the slogan says, put it where it hurts. Great product. Now, if you decide to go to their website, empowerbodycare.com, make sure you use this code. Take advantage of me, please. LW010. Put that code in when you order, and get the benefit of CBD-enriched oils, lotions. I also recommend the body salts, especially for anybody, non-athlete. Maybe you were an athlete, but now you're not any longer. But regretfully, you've got diabetes. The diabetes people have the nerve tingling in their feet and hands. It's awesome stuff for that. Try the body salts, the bath salts. I'm sorry. Andy, man, good morning to you, bud. I hope you have a great day today. I cherish my time as a Panther at peak to peak. So good morning to you. That's our that's our people coming in on Facebook and joining me on my Facebook page. And by the way, join up with KUHSdenver.com. Join the page there. Like us both. Follow us both. Put us in your list of favorites. We'd love to have you there, sharing time with us. Um, as we move on, we get into the mental conditioning segment, which we talk about. This is environment. Now, this is really an important thing. This is where we combine the mindset, remove that negative, bring your skills in place, those five senses, understand the direction you're going to take, and then put that into this environment that surrounds you in this case, this tough time, the NRI stuff, the non-roster invitation players. Look at, here's four things I'm going to ask you to do. Now, can it be applied to any athlete that's finding themselves into an environment that there's a huge sense of urgency to perform in a short period of time. Less than 30 days for these players to make an impact. And they're known. These are players that were invited because of their past and because of their potential. So they know they've got skills. It's whether they can deliver. So the environment and your impact of influencing that environment can be essential to your success. So here's four things I want you to think about in looking at your environment. Define and remove the negative. So look at your environment. You may already be familiar with it, but look at it and really make sure you've got it locked in, and that if there's any negative in there at all, remove it. And interestingly enough, it's as simple as things like, I had a baseball player years ago that got really freaked out by the amount of concrete that was around the entrances to the field, because he puts his cleats on in the locker room, right? Walking out. Now, if you've ever walked in baseball cleats on concrete or asphalt, you know what that feels like. And especially concrete and its uncertainty. That got in his head. So, as simple as it may sound, he didn't think about it. Don't put on your cleats until you exit the locker room and you get clear of the concrete. Or the other thing was flip-flops. Wear, Crocs, anything that slip on. And then get to the dugout, put your cleats on there. Most major league dugouts have a soft, firm but soft material in the dugout to minimize that slipping of the cleats on the concrete. So those kind of considerations are what I'm talking about when it's define and remove the negatives in your environment. The second thing is make a plan and take action on that plan. So every day you're thinking about removing the negatives. That could be a planning item. Like with regard to the cleats. Make a plan and take action on that plan. Now, also then with that plan, as you take action on that plan, make sure that you're looking at your plan to be open to adjusting and adapting. Look, your plan's not an absolute. People and things are going to influence that plan. Be aware of that and be ready to adapt and adjust. And the more you are thinking about before you even get to the clubhouse, removing the negatives, creating a vision of what that looks like so that you can then have an understanding in your own mind about what to then do every single day. You'll be able to adapt and adjust much more effectively. The fourth one is repeat. Repeat the behaviors. What works, repeat it. Repeat it often. Get better at it. Build the confidence in that success. If something doesn't work as well as you'd like it to, take a breath, adjust, repeat again. See if it was just a fluke. If it wasn't, either remove it or totally adjust it some other way. Don't get crazy. Being insane is trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Don't be crazy. So repeat so that you get consistency, but repeat with consideration for the pro and the con. That's what practice is all about. Learning from what doesn't work is far more powerful than the successes you're going to have. Now, I say that with this thought in mind. Successes are also powerful if you take action on doing the same work. Too often, players and teams have the success, but don't see the success. How did I manifest that success? What were the steps I took? What was my mindset? The skills I applied in the environment, the mental conditioning to execute them. So those four things. Let me repeat them again. Four things. Define and remove the negatives. That's pretty much every day that you wake up and get started. That's your mindset prep. Make a plan and take action on that thing, especially as it's directly related to what were those negatives. Remember, if you remove negative, what's left over? Positives, or worst case, is neutral. Identify those. Wrap your arms around them. Third thing, be open to adjusting and adapting. The plan, just because you make a plan, just because you go through the mindset exercises, does not guarantee success. You've got to be open to seeing where you're at, managing your emotions within that environment so that you are able to adapt and adjust as it comes. In baseball, let's take an infielder example. Bad hop. Didn't know it was coming. There's a pebble there. Hit the pebble. Boop. Bad hop. Have I practiced enough to be able to adapt and adjust? And you know players. You've seen players. If you follow baseball at all, you know players and have seen players who know how to adapt and adjust to that. It's going to be inside the frame. They're going to knock it down with the body, grab it with the bare hand. Something's going to happen. But that process happens because they're open to adapting and adjusting, and they practice and prepare with that intent. Now, again, there's no guarantees, but you're going to minimize the chance of error happening where it takes over your performance. So if you're able to adapt and adjust and be open to it, you're going to minimize the impact of those errors. The last one is repeat the process. You've practiced it, you've prepared for it, repeat it so that you can develop the consistency of the mindset, which is the confidence, consistent confidence in your behavior, which then activates the body almost seamlessly. I mean, for me, any sport that I'm not that good at, I watch others who are, I marvel at how easy it looks. The professional, the true professional, is the one who makes what they do, difficult things, look really easy to do. Now, there was a time, every once in a while when I was younger, I got rotated to third base. For some reason, they thought catchers should go to third base. Is it because we don't have a problem with balls bouncing off our chest? I don't know. But the one thing, there was a play at third base, that slow roller bunt, where you know it's the charge it and you're going to bare-hand it, pick it, and throw it. That is tough to do. Because you've got to be all in on the run and not have any hesitation to seeing it, touching it, picking it, throwing it, all in one motion. Nolan Arenado, the kid is amazing with that. But that's something that a true pro makes look really easy. He didn't get there. She didn't get there in the area of baseball and softball for women as well. They don't get there. Players who can execute that and make it look easy do not get there without preparation and practice. And a mindset that looks at removing the negatives. They don't run at that ball thinking, oh my God, I don't think I'm going to get this. They've already removed that negative. The failure doesn't even come into their head. It doesn't exist. So those are the four things I want you to consider. Let's see, we're about 20 minutes to noon here at KUHSdenver.com. I'm Lowell Whiteley, your host of 360 Performance. We share with you, we talk about issues related to sports performance. But then we have those moments where we say, as an athlete, as a fan of sports, I see what's happening, and I go, boy, I wish somebody else in such and such world of endeavor that's not sports related would practice the same kind of discipline, would practice the same kind of preparation, because my interaction with them would be much, much better if they were to do that. Maybe they'd be more consistent in the delivery of their performance. They'd have more confidence, which would mean I wouldn't have as many chances to clean up after them. Because right now, their confidence is causing some discomfort for me in my workplace. And I would like to have a better workplace. We talk a lot about performance issues here on 360 Performance, because it's what we do and how we get a great feeling about the support we give to our athletes and those executives that we work with. And I was talking to the to Henry this morning, and many of you who watch KUHS, Henry is a jazz guy. He and I have kindred spirits when it comes to jazz. But he and I were talking about just the behaviors of people that they say they want performance. They talk about doing the best for others and themselves, but the rhetoric doesn't match the action. It's really easy in baseball. These NRI guys, the non-roster invitations that have gone out to pretty much, I would say pretty much every one of the MLB franchises have an NRI list. They know that these players have delivered before. They know that they can do a Nolan Arenado, slow roller bunt, pick up and throw. The issue is how consistent. Talk is cheap now with that. It's not like, I've done that before. Well, do it now. Every moment is a key. And consistency. So that last point I made about the 4 things to consider when you're looking at your mental condition and the environment that you're in, and the influence of that environment on your ability to perform, is going to be key stuff for those non-roster invitees, because they have a short period of time. The pressure is on. Now, as I say that, I'm going to remind all of us about some other things that have come up in some other sports. One of those was recently. There's no NRI for this young lady, but she has demonstrated time and time again her grit and her tenacity to her sport, and that is Lindsey Vonn. She's retired, officially finished her last race, and is moving on to some other aspects of her career. I'm going to guess, based on what I've heard her speak, I've been around her when she's gotten ready for speaking. She's a champion in pretty much everything she does. She has a confidence that drives her towards excellence, and I believe that she's going to get picked up by a network for Olympic coverage for sure. If they don't, that would be just totally surprise me. So I think she has. And look, she's not like me. I have a face for radio. She does not. She's a beautiful human being that has the desires and the insights on how to do it right and present that image, that positive image for young women professionals in both sports and non-sports. So I think she's going to get a good, serious look by those major players in the sports broadcasting field. And regardless whether it's winter sport related or not, I think Lindsey could do well in any of those. Now, that being said, there's also Lindsey as a coach. Just her presence and the example she can bring to other athletes on how to clarify their approach to a course, their approach to the environment. If you've ever been around winter sports, environment is very fickle. The weather can change in a heartbeat, but that doesn't mean the event stops. So being able to train and share stories with skiers, downhill skiers, the park kind of skiers, with the big air kind of things, it's just getting that attitude right about how the environment influences you and helping those young people coach them through that is huge. So that's my prediction about Lindsey Vonn. That she's going to be one of those greats that are going to do well outside the sport. Now, there's also that transition time. I would encourage her to have some downtime so that she can kind of transition herself out of that athlete mindset. Get a lot of empower. She had a little bit of a fall before her last race, and I'm sure it gave her some soreness here and there. And once you remove yourself from the field, you have to pay for the massages. They just don't show up for you. And the whirlpool bath and the spa treatments, it's all on you, girl. So there's some transition time, some realization about what's not going to be present for you in your world. Now, before I forget it, let me just reiterate again. If you're interested in becoming a Major League Baseball player and you're looking for tryouts, go to this website, Steve, S-T-E-V-E, the ump, T-H-E, ump, U-M-P, .com / Major League. So ML, the letters ML, team address, TEAMADDRESS .HTM. And go check out a lot of information there, contact numbers, addresses, names of people all over the world for a place to go to try out. But remember, I said at the beginning of the show, Major League Baseball does not have tryouts. Now, that doesn't mean their scouts don't go start looking around. But the closest thing to a tryout is the non-roster invitation. You have to be invited to show up to spring ball in Florida or in Arizona. And our Rockies, they had 19. We went through that list a minute ago. You're listening to 360 Performance on KUHSdenver.com. Every Friday, 11 o'clock, we're here sharing with you performance ideas and thoughts focused on sports. And not just pro sports, but all sports. As I mentioned, I was with, this week, I had an evening meeting with a women's volleyball team, a club team. The DIF, I'll give them some props. It's called the DIF. And they're a wonderful squad of coaches and players. But the ladies kind of struggling with getting their bid. A bid is something that happens, fortunately for them, twice. They'll have a second opportunity to get a bid to go on to national tournament recognition and tournament play, which is good stuff. Because if you're a player in volleyball, women's volleyball, you want to be an Olympic athlete, this is a way to get looked at for that. Pretty much every one of the players on this DIF team, the 18 and under DIF team, is going on to college, and most of them are going on to college to play volleyball as well. So they'll be a student athlete. We talked a little bit about process, which is our segment on performance result. That's our last segment of every show, is about performance results and the process. Putting together that I've got a handle on what the negatives are, and I'm removing them. I've got a strategy for that. My brain is wrapped around that. I'm feeling good about that. So I know how to apply my skills, those skills that are based in my five senses, how to feel it and see it, and be emotionally aware of it and hear the sounds and see the images so that I can be best prepared to adapt and to adjust. And then we have our mental conditioning where we bring in that environmental consideration. How's my brain wrapped around not only the skills and my mindset, but what's the influence of the environment? Am I fully aware of the details? As I said with Bill Belichick, he said, yeah, that's part of what he does. The knowledge, being aware, down to the details. So performance results for us combines all of that together so that you clearly define the process for you in being able to move forward and succeed at whatever you prescribe for you as your successes. Now, for this volleyball team, the prescription is right now, you get a second chance on getting a bid to national tournament play and recognition. Now, as I said to the ladies, I said, that's your goal, and that's wonderful, but the process is what's important. What are you going to do to create a process that challenges you to be your best so that you've got a high probability of getting that bid? It's process. Like, for example, are you sharing with each other how you can support one another on the floor? Are you sharing with your coaches things that you know as players that would help the coaches be better at substitution, offensive set calls, defense, that kind of exchange of information? There were some nods of heads about some things that were missing. I won't go into the details. But if you don't go through that checklist of my mindset, my skill acquisition, my mental conditioning and considering environment, and then the performance results that I want, or the process that I believe works for me, because it's been proven to myself time and time again how good I am, the results I get with that process. Michael Johnson, for example, multiple gold medalist in track and field, in running, the 440 in particular. People would ask him about some of the things he does to get to that Olympic level. And, and he still holds many of the speed records, Olympic as well as U.S. Records, for his performance in track and field. But he says routinely, he's gone publicly saying, it's about process. Where are my hands at? How do I feel my fingers touching one another? Is it the right feeling? How does my foot grab the track? The extension of my leg. Every step, every stride, every movement of his body is made in such a way that's going to optimize his chance of breaking a 40-second. And the times that he wins, sub 4:0 or not sub 4:0. What's it going to take to get there? And it's that focus that he's working on to get, and he's done it. So he knows the process mindset works. And that's what I shared with this growth volleyball team. Hone in and sharpen your process. Be better at looking at yourself first, the swagger, that energy you put in yourself first, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to support anybody else as quickly or as fully as you would if you spent time on who you are. And then sharing that with your teammates. So performance results is a process, that's true. But one of the important things is that we connect it to our mindset, our skill, and our mental condition, and share it. Share with your teammates. Boy, I'd love to have you if you were here, if you stood here, did this. With the non-roster invitation players on the teams, they'll in most cases they're going to know a number of the players on the team. Like with Curtis Granderson, he knows a number of the players on the Marlins team. He knows the director of operations, Derek Jeter. He was a teammate of his. Ask questions, speak, share, get insights. The true professional honors the excellence of others, and they will share insights, even if it means that they are excluded because the performance of someone else is weakened. And they were part of the recommendations of skill sets and reminders and insights that help them get there. But that was meant to be. That's what the true professional does. They step aside. They offer support because that's who they are. They would want someone else to do the same for them. That's how teams become championships and champions and World Series winners. They have no fear of sharing insights because they're confident about who they are. And that is a process in itself. So the question is, what is your process of excellence? What are you doing every day when you wake up in identifying the negatives and bringing those forward? And sharing, and then having the confidence to share it with other people. That may be people that will take the job away from you. But if you truly believe in the game, in the sport, and perhaps even the team, that's what you do. Because that's what true professionals do. They're in it for themselves first. They create that swagger. But not to be selfish. They do it to be self-informed, self-aware, and because of that sharing, they may be the person that wins. Because they're not going to ignore what they're doing. They're going to share it and then use it for themselves as well. So that, to me, competitors, the true competitors are the ones that not only shake each other's hands when they start, but shake each other's hands when they finish, win or lose. And eye contact, direct affirmation that I am humbled by your success and proud to be around you when you succeed. So, we're a few minutes away from noon. We've got about 6 minutes left in the show. I want to remind you again, you're listening to KUHSdenver.com. I'm Lowell White, and your host of 360 Performance, brought to you by 360mindset.com. Every Friday at 11, we try to bring you insights on human performance issues that can make you better and give you the chance to have confidence that will adapt and adjust your performance to higher levels than you expect. So, we've got about 5 minutes left in the show. I wanted to just share some insights I've had over the last few weeks. about performance and the influence of others on our behavior. I tend to see it through the lens of sports and sports activities, and then I relate those kinds of behaviors to business and executive behavior. It's important for me to make those connections because, interestingly enough, I've got athletes who retire and they go into business on their own. So recently, that's been very, very high on my list of understanding, and I want to share these thoughts with you. When you have a clear understanding of what you want to try to accomplish in your life, in your world, don't keep it to yourself. If you really want to improve not only your own performance, but the performance of others, share that for a couple of reasons. One is it's hard to get support from other people and things if they don't know how to support you. So demonstrate it, ask for it, share the purpose and intent of what you do so that there's a clear path for others to follow in helping you be great. Or the other side of things, once you share, you're going to get back, especially if you ask for it, information and insights from others that are going to help you understand how to move forward, how to engage others to come into your world. In the sports world, it's that give and take. If you're aware of the opponent, you're going to see where they might have a chance to fail and be able to take advantage of it. On the other side, you're watching your teammates, you're aware of your environment, you see how your teammates respond or had responded in practice, you're prepared for those behaviors, and when you see them, you go get them. In basketball, for me, it was watching my teammates' body movement to know when was the right time to really get them a pass, and not just because they were open, but because they were ready to take the next move. And it could have been taking a shot. It could be catching the ball in a way they can make a really good ball fake and then pull it through and take a drive. The bottom line was I was aware of who they were, how they moved, so that I can then connect with them and make their movement purposeful. Because my intent was to make them better. Second thing is the environment that you work in can be really challenging. In the world today, as I travel around the country and I talk to my athletes and executives I work with, more and more I find that they're influenced in a negative way. The emotions, the feelings of just walking down the street and seeing the grumpiness of people, the attitude of people of get out of my way, it's me first. I'm trying to figure out how do I remove that negative. I've identified it. I know where it's at in the environment. So here's my current thought. I might expand on it. I might get rid of it, but right now this is working. Smile. Smile. Real simple. I try to greet everybody with a smile. Here's an example. I was at a luncheon with a couple of gentlemen I met for the first time. And the server came over to see if we wanted any drinks or anything. And the server would not make eye contact with us. Her chin was down, her eyes were down. She talked to us, she said the right things, very pleasant tone in her voice, but eye contact was non-existent. So every time she showed up, I looked at her face, didn't get eye contact, and said, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I changed my tone even more direct in those remarks. Eventually, I got eye contact. I wasn't going to let her leave without me having eye contact. So she could really understand what I was trying to share and to the level and degree I was sharing. Now, when I got to eye contact, the next time she came back, which was to give us our check and to clear some items from the table, she was looking for eye contact. It was awesome. I felt really good about it. So smiles. Smiles is the thing. And smile from inside. It wasn't so much I was going to smile physically because she wasn't looking at me. but that tone in my voice was a smile. The tone in my voice had a pleasant, engaging kind of tone to it, so that I could then get her to see me, and then I could smile for sure, and she could physically see it. So smile seems to be the thing that's helping me to, for me personally, as well as my recommendation to others. So I'm recommending it to you as well. So, as I close out the show today, we've got about 30 seconds left in the show today. I want to remind you that next week, we're going to be talking about the Combine. It's coming up here very shortly. We're going to talk about what's being looked at, and there's some players around the country, college kids that are out there training their little butts off to get ready for the Combine. And also should say, we're going to talk about Pro Day as well. Combine/Pro Day. In advance to that actually happening. It will be coming up very soon in a couple weeks, in the last part of February into March. We'll be talking about that, and wishing you all the best for this month of February, which is Black History Month. As I came over today, my ending news story for you, as far as performance is concerned, is about the Tuskegee Airmen. And interestingly enough, we have a number of Tuskegee Airmen living in the Denver metro area. What many of you may not know is that the Tuskegee Airmen were put in a situation to fail, because it was based on pressure from people who really didn't want to comply with the decency of allowing any American to participate in a war effort. In this case, as a fighter pilot. So they were put into, Tuskegee. They trained and trained and trained. Eventually, they got into planes. They're not legit planes. And eventually, they kept pushing. They got to the next step. They got into the theater. They went into Africa first as pilots, but constantly attacking ground targets, not getting into air combat. That they wanted more of it. They wanted to be really into the European theater. Well, eventually, what happened is when they got to the European theater and were not engaged in combat, Eleanor Roosevelt came to their defense. She stepped up. She took pictures with these gentlemen. She flew in a plane with one of these aviators, with one of these Tuskegee Airmen. But all of that greatness had a price. But the price was one that was based on results and performance that worked, that was on target. Regardless of the color of your skin, it worked. Fortunately, because of the determination and the perseverance, the Tuskegee Airmen won out because of their performance and the results they delivered through extremely tough odds. My name is Lowell White, and I'm your host of 360 Performance on KUHSdenver.com. Have a great Friday. Enjoy the day.